Hello and welcome to WePC. My name's Charlie and today we'll be looking at the AOC CQ32G1 gaming monitor. It's a 32-inch 1440p VA gaming monitor. It has a 144Hz refresh rate and a 1ms response time. That's a 4ms G2G though. The full dimensions are 713mm by 425 by 81. So with all that being said, let's take a closer look and see what it can do. So first of all, we're going to look at the panel coating. It's anti-glare with a 3H hardness in matte. It does a very good job of mitigating natural sunlight and indoor lights. So as you can see, the bezels are pretty thin. Around the outside, you're looking at 9mm. At the bottom, you're looking at 23. Overall, they're pretty small. This would be a great monitor if you wanted to use like a dual or triple monitor setup. So the stand for me was probably one of the worst features of the monitor. It doesn't really have much functionality whatsoever. 5 degrees forward tilt and 23 degrees backward tilt, but that's literally it. You don't really have any rotational movement. You can't turn. It's pretty limited really in terms of what you can and can't do. I mean, it's a pretty big monitor though, so you wouldn't want to play with it too much, and because it's got quite good viewing angles, something we'll touch on shortly, you don't really need to move it anyway. As the monitor is curved though, the lack of versatility and tilt and all that sort of thing, it just becomes less of an issue because you really want to be looking at it flat on anyway, so not too much of a con for me. If you're the sort of person that does need a bit of extra versatility and you want to change the stand or you want to mount it on the wall or on your desk, it does have a Vaser mount at the back, which is a standard 100 by 100mm Vaser point. As far as inputs are concerned, like always, they're found at the back of the monitor. All the cables need to be attached in a vertical fashion. Because the stand's the way it is, they are a little bit awkward, but I mean, overall, you can pretty much access those quite easy. You've got one DisplayPort 1.2, you've got one HDMI 2.0 and one HDMI 1.4. The latter of those three only offers 144Hz at 1080p. If you are looking to crank up the resolution to 1440p, which is what this monitor offers, you are going to have to use either a HDMI 2.0 or a Display 1.2. They both come with the monitor, so that shouldn't be an issue, to be honest. The monitor also comes with a 3.5mm audio jack at the back. It comes with speakers, which are pretty tinny. I'd only really use those for like notifications or something along those lines. If you want to get better audio quality, obviously just pop your headphone jack into the 3.5mm in the back. You'll also be pleased to know that this particular monitor does have a kettle plug. It's not one of the brick power pack things, which can be a bit annoying. So looking at the on-screen display, it is one of those little fiddly ones, which takes a bit of time to get your head around. When you get used to it though, you can have pretty much full control over everything. We use the user color settings when we were calibrating it. Using that setting, you can adjust the RGB, you can adjust the luminance, the brightness, contrast, all that sort of thing. If you use the sRGB mode, which is the best out of the box for colors, you are restricted to things like brightness, so just keep that in mind. We're going to run through all those tests later, but off the top, there's plenty of options to work with. You've got picture boost, you've got game settings there as well, which is things like you have a game mode, you can flick that on. Game color, that's where it oversaturates things. Some people like that in the office, that's personal preference. You can turn your FreeSync on. Pretty much everything you can normally do with a game monitor you can do in there. It's just getting used to it, that's the thing, because I thought it was a little bit fiddly. But once you've done that, it's pretty good. For those out there that actually care about their eyes, there is a blue light filter in there. It's also flicker free, but again, those are two pretty standard features on most monitors nowadays, unless you get something that's pretty old and completely terrible. Looking at the game mode on the OSD, you've got things like game mode, which you can flick through and it changes the presets. It's more of a color profile that it changes, but it does restrict what you can actually do in terms of customization. We left it as off. You've got a shadow control, if that comes back up. You can change shadow control. You've got a low input lag setting there, which comes on automatically when you set the overdrive. You've got game color, which is like oversaturates things. Low blue light mode, which is obviously low blue light, which we touched on already. You got the FreeSync there. You got a frame counter, which is just an FPS counter for when you're in game, and you've got MBR, which is motion blur reduction. Using those two in tandem, the overdrive and the MBR, if you set the overdrive to anything above strong, it pretty much, that's basically putting MBR automatically into 20. You won't be able to customize that, but having it on strong, you can have as Chris likes to say, the best of both worlds. So you can have the screen strobing and you can have the strong overdrive as well. So you have that freedom to sort of, you know, balance out exactly what you want because it affects the brightness. As for viewing angles, they're pretty standard for a VA panel. You get the usual brightness drop and the colour shift that you would get with this panel technology, and that occurs at around 30 degrees. So now we're going to take a quick look at the picture quality. It's worth mentioning before we get into it that each panel is different. You will find that the results vary from panel to panel. It's all part of the panel lottery. So take these results with a pinch of salt, but these are the results we got on this particular panel. The first test we're going to run is a panel uniformity test. This looks at luminous deviation and colour deviation. We have a reference square in the centre. The display cal measures that, and then what you're looking for realistically is everyone to be green, and that means you've got a pretty good panel. Usually the corners are the worst on monitors, but as you can see from our results, they're actually not that bad. I mean, I'd expect more red, if I'm being completely honest, but there is no red on the corners at all. As you can see from our results, the two squares at the top were the worst. They've got an average deviation of around 5. The one on the left has got 5.49, the one on the right has got 4.7 maximum colour deviation. The brightness across the board was pretty good, but again in these two squares you've got 15.2. You've got under 15.2 candelas. On the right is 11.73. Funnily, that isn't the worst on the monitor. There's worse ones. This one down the bottom is minus 26. This one's minus 16, but overall these are red because of the colour deviation. They're just the worst colour. Those were the scientific readings. Whilst most of them were good, there was the two at the top that were poorer than most, but from a day-to-day point of view, you'd be pretty hard-pressed to notice any real difference in your monitor. It's pretty good from what I've seen. Next up, we'll be doing the colour accuracy tests. That's where the instrument looks at how accurate the colours are to true. For the purposes of this test, we tested warm, sRGB and user. Warm was the out-of-the-box settings. The results were pretty good actually. I was impressed just because most monitors out of the box aren't as good as these figures. Changing it to sRGB was actually better, but you are limited in terms of the brightness you can use and some of the other presets that we talked about in the OSD section. We ended up on the user setting. That was the best out of the bunch. It had good white point, pretty close to 6500 kelvins, which is what you want. It had a 0.05 black depth. The contrast ratio was a little bit lower than what you'd want. It was 2635 to 1, but the average delta was only 0.3, which is pretty much exactly what you want. You'll be hard pressed at this price range to find something that does anything much better. So yeah, calibrated settings were extremely good. So if you are looking at buying this monitor, for me personally, if you don't really care too much about the brightness settings, the sRGB offered the best out-of-the-box preset colours. If you do care about the brightness, then you're going to want to set it into user colour temperature. Set the RGB to 48, 48, 50, and you'll still have the freedom to change the brightness as well. But sRGB, best out of the box and no brightness. User 48, 48, 50, and you have freedom of brightness. We have uploaded our calibrated settings to the website. The link is below. If you click on that, you can download and install that profile yourself, and that is as close to true as you can get with this particular panel. So the monitor is a FreeSync premium monitor. It has G-Sync compatibility as well. The window is 30 to 144 Hz, which for a panel of this standard is pretty good. We ran it through a few games. I noticed very little screen tearing. It was extremely good. We've now put it through the pendulum test, as you can see. It's switched off at the moment, but we're going to switch it on, and for me personally, you can just see the smoothness straight away. So thumbs up for VRR. As the window is so big with this particular monitor, people that have less powerful computers, say they're even running, well, I wouldn't say an APU, but lesser powerful graphics cards, will still be able to get a smooth experience because it does, the variable refresh rate does work right the way down to 30, as you can see on the pendulum test. So there you have it, our complete review of the AOC CQ32G1. Overall I thought it was pretty good. Colours obviously shone, as did the immersive value because of the 1800R curvature. Gaming wasn't the best in the world, but you sort of come to expect that from a VA panel. Put the price into the equation, I think it's a pretty good deal overall. For a monitor under $350, you do get a lot of bang for your buck. So overall, pretty happy with it. It's a decent little monitor. Hopefully this video has helped you decide whether the AOC is right for you. If it is, there is a link in the description below that you can click and check out the price in your area. If you like the video, drop us a like and a subscribe by clicking the buttons below. If you leave us a comment, you can do that as well. I probably won't read them, but Chris certainly will. And I'll see you on the next one.